Hey, my name is Alex, and this is Bento Radio. Now, before we get started, just some stuff to get out of the way real quick for just the start of podcast stuff. First, if you really like the show, be sure to subscribe to it wherever you get your podcast. That includes, if you're watching on YouTube, you can scroll right down and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to hit that bell so you get notifications when new episodes drop, that would be great. And if you really like the podcast, be sure to leave a comment wherever allows you to leave comments. And if that place allows you to also give it 5 stars, that would really help the show. So thank you. And I would love to hear from you, the listener. But if you really can't get enough of what I'm doing, be sure to check out the website, which is bento.io. I am a little behind, but generally speaking, there'll be a new post for every episode, or there should be a new post for every episode. There's also some stuff that I've written about anime on that site you can go check out. So that site again is bento-box.go.io, and that website is available, that link is available in the description of this YouTube video, or in the description of this as a podcast, or in the show page for the podcast, or the page for the YouTube channel. So it's available anywhere for you to just go click and get there. While you're over there, you can also check out another project I'm working on, which is an app. It's called Bento Watch. And the basic idea is I wanted a watch list app that was more than a checklist. Not that things like Kitsu or Analyst or My Anime List aren't great options, but I wanted something that felt like it was built for somebody who wanted to use it critically. Because, like me, a lot of people talk about anime on the internet, take notes about things. And if you watched some of my recent episodes and you thought like, oh, this sounds like he took notes about this. And I did it using the beta version of that app. And if you're interested in giving that beta version a shot, you can go over to the website. Once again, that site is bento-box.ghost.io, and there'll be a option up in the main navigation for you to click, and you can see a little preview of the app, read a little bit about it, and then most importantly, click a button and get an invite to the beta version of Bento Watch, which I hit a snafu in Apple's system in the background, and I reached out to them. I haven't seen that they've gotten back to me yet, but I'm trying to get through the approval process for actually releasing that as a real thing you can go get on the Apple App Store eventually. But, so those are the introductory things. Now, where I tell you that if this is your first episode, this is going to be a bit odd, but I do this every season. It started out of necessity of me losing the plot, but now I like to do it as a way of talking about upcoming shows and a way of setting the stage for interesting stuff I think you might like as well. So this is going to be my seasonal what I'm watching this season. And usually I pick 3 to 5, maybe 6 or 7 shows for each of these episodes, just so there's a good spread of things to watch. But this season, I'm actually picking 3 here, because I don't want to be overly ambitious, and also because these are 3 that I think are really great picks. So there won't be an interlude from I here, but let's jump into what my 3 picks are for what I'm watching this season. So to start with here, I'm actually going to start with the thing that I was not really looking forward to until I went and saw the first episode, which you can watch the first episode. Actually, if you're watching me on YouTube right now, you can stop what you're doing. You can watch the first episode of this show right now on YouTube. I didn't watch it on YouTube. I was lucky enough to be able to go to the Japan Society and see a literal world premiere right about literally 3 days before it premiered on the 4th of April, if you're listening to this in a timely manner. But I read the first couple chapters of the manga for this, and I thought it was a really interesting, like, on the shonen formula applied to something that is not usually applied to. And I thought it was a really emotional application of it. I've talked a little bit about, talked a lot about the way that I think shonen has changed over the years, and changed with a world that is less clean-cut and feels less overtly hopeful. And I think that show called Akane-Banashi fits kind of into that thing. It's a show all about a going up the ranks of Rakugo. And if you don't know what Rakugo is, essentially the closest thing that Japan has to what we would think of as stand-up comedy, but it's also a form of theater and performance, and there's very specific rules and customs and like a set of stories that is a very specific set of stories that are traditional to Rakugo. And this is a show about the performers, and there's another show about Rakugo that's much more dramatic and much more... It had... Not that Akane-Banashi doesn't feel like a prestige thing, it actually does, which I think is very cool. But, original Rakugo show, which I haven't watched because I took one look at it, I'm like, put me in like a dark place. And I don't need that. But, like, I look at that show and I'm like, that show looks amazing, but I can't. Anyway, so I went to see, there's like a history of Rakugo shows in anime at this point. They're usually pretty, and like rated. I think that Akane-Banashi will fit right into that. I also, like I said, I was lucky enough to go see the world premiere of this at the Japan Society on the 1st of April. And, we also treated to a live performance by Katsura, who, if you've seen a like white guy with crazy hair performing Rakugo on the internet, that's probably him. One of my favorite hilarious weird bits that he has miraculously pulled is that he had a deal with a hair salon where he promotes them and he is like the ambassador. And he shows up, I think once a month, and they do whatever they want to his hair. When we saw him, his hair was like this and just lime green. Like it worked on him, but it was just a really funny moment of just like people out here doing the wildest brand deals, and it rules. Like he to that in a way that like most just don't. But I got to see that. But special thanks to the Japan Society and I'm Peter Chitara of the film program who literally introduced the whole thing. Had a huge hand in arranging all that, but special thanks to him and his team and Japan Society for putting that on. I've actually talked to Peter about running the film program over there before. It was on my previous podcast. I have it marked in my file. I need to figure out a way to like re-upload. But, like it's out there. You can go to Lunchbox Radio and find that specific. I didn't take down the podcast or anything. I know it's still up. And that interview with him all about running that. But special thanks to the Japan Society for putting that on. It was a really fun night. And then, yeah, so looking forward to seeing the rest of Akane-Banashi. I think there's probably 2 episodes out by now. But that also very cool because the whole show will be coming dubbed to Netflix, I believe, in May. And then the show is just airing on YouTube every week. So it's free. It is literally free anime that you can just go watch right now, which is great. So go check that out. And now the next show that I want to talk about is a called Witch Hat Atelier. This is another one where I read some of the manga at first. I actually didn't make it even through the first chapter because I have this thing about certain things that I read, where when I'm reading them, they don't feel... And this applies to manga and traditional, and especially light novels. When I'm reading something, it can't, like, have a sense of place to me. And this is a different problem, and there was a problem a couple of years ago that I saw in a lot of media that was like, no media knows how to start or end a story properly for a while there. And I was like, what's happening? But for me, some media, it's a good story once you get into it, once it gets going. But sometimes I have a problem with the starting of a thing. And I often look at something and be like, I want this... I have a theory about like passive versus active media, and what I mean by that is passive media is stuff like television, active media is stuff like reading. Passive media is stuff like television and podcasts where literally you click a button and it happens at you or to you. Like this. Or active media, which is media that is required you to engage with it directly. That's stuff like manga, it's stuff like books, it's stuff like video games. And just sometimes I'm reading something, I'm like, I know this is good, I know I will like it, but I want it in a more passive form, because I'm weird. I'm just a weird dude, sometimes. And Witch Hat Atelier, I've heard a lot of incredibly great things about the manga for a long time. And I just got a volume, I think it's sitting somewhere, among the other volumes of manga that are all here, hilariously. But didn't, like, I'm about halfway into the first chapter, I'm like, I think it's going to have a show eventually. I want this as a show. Based on what I've heard about it, I want this as a show. And I've never seen the first 2 episodes. I see what people see in it. I think it's very cool. That went over on Crunchyroll. You can promoting the ever-loving daylights out of it, apparently. I don't pay attention to much of that, but from what I hear, there's a lot of attention to it. Probably they see in it something similar to what you see in things like Freyren, or what you see in things like, the one with the skull guy and the girl who goes to college and magic. I forget that one. But they see a lot of the same kind of, but also it does have like a power system and stuff like that. But much softer than something like, say, Black, much. So, that's the second one I'm going to check out. This is the last one I'm going to check out. This is going to be a shorter episode than normal, by the way, because it's just like my spring 2026 thoughts, essentially. As kick off spring 2026 as a season of anime. But, my last thing I want to talk about is a show from the infamous creator of not just Fullmetal Alchemist, but a way lesser known show called Silver Spoon. And if you've ever seen Silver Spoon, you're like bouncing in your seat right now, because I think a lot more people should be talking about Silver Spoon. Because Hiromu, manga author behind Fullmetal Alchemist, her earlier work was Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon is just a show about animal husbandry. It's like this kind of edutainment. There's this like edutainmentness shows in anime, strain in anime, that you don't see a whole lot anymore, but includes things like Rory, which I've talked about on the show, at this point probably very little known show that got a live action addition to it, which is insane, called Moyashiman, which is all about like chemicals, microbes, and like science, like pasteurization, like insanity. And then there is Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon is what I like to call not a hobbyganda show, but a professional propaganda show. You get these shows every once in a while. There are these shows that are meant to make you want to do something. In the case of Rory Rocks, it's get into geology, study and like find rocks. In the case of something like Skate the Infinity, it's skateboarding. And these shows take a lot of different forms, and they're not always explicitly about making you want to do something, but they are about celebrating certain things. And in Hiromu Arakawa's case, her entry to that was, it is just a show about kids in farm college. It's wild. It's so much fun. One of the teachers is just a guy who looks like Buddha who is obsessed with cheese. It's hilarious. But one of the things I've always liked about that, I realized in watching Daemons of the Shadow Realm, and I promise I'm not mispronouncing that. It's literally called Daemons of the Shadow Realm, not Daemons of the Shadow Realm. One of the things I realized I loved about Hiromu Arakawa is she's now responsible for 3 exceptional anime. And I can tell that this one will also be pretty exceptional. But she's responsible for Silver Spoon, once again, a show about kids in farm college, Fullmetal Alchemist. It's just in all of us. I just triggered a lot of people to just do the commercial break from Fullmetal Alchemist. But she did Fullmetal Alchemist, and now we have Daemons of the Shadow Realm. All 3 of those are so different. Probably the most of which is Silver Spoon, But what I love there is that she hasn't just done the same thing with different shades every time. Like Kishimoto, the original author of Naruto, he attempted to do a second manga called, I think it was called Samurai 8 or something. And it felt so much like Naruto that it didn't quite take. It was so weird. But that's not to take anything away from Naruto. I promise there's a point to this. And then you look at other mangaka, it immediately flew out of my head, but you look at other mangaka, the mangaka and writing team behind Death Note. He did another manga that was super metatextual and about making manga, and it was so weird. So, it was just like, and mostly the reason it was weird because they tried to work in a romance subplot that makes no sense and treats the girl like a prize to be won at a raffle. Just super weird and bad. And it was kind of universally, everybody was, I don't know about that one. We're fine with... Actually, that same writing team came back to make this other thing that was super edgelordy and not very well received. I forget what it was called, and I watched a fair bit of it. But, so, what I'm saying is, Fullmetal Alchemist's track record for jumping from, not just from arc to arc, but to full series, it's really spot on, really good. That's a really rare thing to find in someone doing it. Even somebody like, what's his name, the guy who, I'm terrible with names if you can't tell, but the guy who makes One Punch Man, no, not One Punch Man, the guy who makes Chainsaw Man. The guy who makes Chainsaw Man. If you look at his work, yes, it's different subject matter, yes, it's different settings, and it all has a pretty similar feel and vibe. And the thing that's interesting about Hiromaru Arakawa is Demons of Shadow Realm feels fundamentally different than the other two works. And Silver Spoon feels fundamentally different than Fullmetal or Demons of the Shadow Realm. They all exist in their own thing and they feel different. What's being leveraged is her skill as a storyteller. And that's what makes it really interesting for me to watch Demons of the Shadow Realm. And I remember, that was another one where I didn't even read the manga because that thing's going to have an anime. It's going to rule. I don't want to burn myself out on it before the show gets here because I like knowing that I'll probably like something, but not knowing everything about it when I go into it. And so those are the 3 shows I'm picking for this season. It's a lower number than I usually pick, but I fell behind on some stuff. And there's some stuff that I wasn't expecting that I want to watch, so I want to feed stuff in and give myself some room to play around a little bit with what I'm watching. Especially since stuff Invincible, I'm watching Invincible, came back and I want to keep on it so I don't forget about stuff. But those are the 3 shows that I am watching this season. So those shows, once again, are, I'm staring at the list, sorry, Akane-Banashi, Witch Hat Atelier, and Demons of the Shadow Realm. So this is where I'm going to leave it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and if you did, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. If you're listening to it on a podcast platform and they allow you to give a 5-star review, be sure to do that. If you're watching this on YouTube and you really liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video. In addition, if you want to make sure that you don't miss a beat, be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when new episodes drop. But if you're wondering, they drop every Thursday night Eastern time. And on that note, if you really love the podcast and you really love what I'm trying to do here, be sure to give the website a look. That website is bento-box.ghost.io. There will be a link in the description of either this podcast or this video. It'll also be linked in the description of the entire podcast on the information page. It'll also be linked in the description of the YouTube channel. So there's plenty of ways for you to get to that website and check it out. If you want to follow me, my social links are also listed in the footer of that page. So once again, go over there to find that stuff. But I hope you like the episode. I look forward to talking to you next time. But until next time, I have been Alex. This has been Bento Radio. and I'll talk at you later.